Our previous modules explored how to write effective stories, tasks, and other work items. Now we will tackle something many product leaders find challenging: estimating effort, forecasting time, and prioritizing work. I want to be upfront about something. I don't have a magic formula that will make your estimates perfect or your forecasts completely accurate. What I do have is years of experience learning how to create an environment where teams can estimate effectively and deliver consistently. To help you build this capability in your team, we need to understand how estimation, forecasting, and prioritization work together to drive successful delivery. Let's explore how these elements support each other and how you can develop them effectively in your organization. Think about this like planning a road trip. Estimation is like understanding the distance and terrain you need to cover. How big and complex is the journey? Forecasting is then figuring out how long the trip will take, accounting for factors like traffic, weather, and driver changes. Prioritization is deciding which route to take and which stops are most important. Just as these elements of trip planning affect each other, our delivery planning elements are deeply interconnected. When you estimate something as relatively simple, that might increase its priority. After all, a high-value, low-effort item often becomes more important than something equally valuable but much more complex. Your forecasts, in turn, depend not just on these estimates, but on practical realities like team capacity, upcoming vacations, and dependencies on other teams. Understanding these relationships helps us make better decisions, but it also reveals something crucial. Before we can make reliable forecasts or smart prioritization decisions, we need to build strong estimation capabilities into our team. Let's explore how to create an environment where good estimation can flourish. Creating an environment for effective estimation isn't only about implementing specific techniques or frameworks. It's about giving your team time to develop shared understanding and consistent practices. A team typically takes 5 to 6 sprints to produce reliable estimates. This isn't because the team lacks capability. It's because they need time to understand the work, the systems, and most importantly, each other. If you're unfamiliar with the term sprints, it comes from Scrum, which we'll talk more about later in this course. A sprint is typically about 2 weeks. So when I say it takes about 5 to 6 sprints to develop really good estimation capabilities, what I mean is it's kind of 10 to 12 weeks, assuming that every 2 weeks you're going through an estimation exercise. So by the 5th or 6th time, it's going to start to even out, but you're looking at about 3 months before teams get really good at it. During these first sprints, you'll see a pattern that might seem concerning, but is actually a natural part of the learning process. Teams often start by vastly underestimating work, committing to more than they can possibly complete. Then, feeling burned by that experience, they swing in the opposite direction, inflating their estimates to protect themselves. Your role as a leader during this time is to maintain calm and patience, helping the team understand that this learning process is not just normal, it's valuable. As your team develops their estimation skills, they'll encounter different types of work that require different approaches. Most feature development work can be estimated once the team has enough context and experience. But sometimes you'll need what we call spike tickets, research and development work where we don't yet know the solution. Your team may need to explore new technology or investigate different approaches to solving a complex problem. You can't estimate this type of work traditionally because discovering unknowns is the whole point. Instead, you time box it. You might say, we'll spend up to a week investigating this approach, and if we can't find a viable solution, we'll try something else. Understanding these distinctions helps teams estimate more accurately and builds confidence in their learning process. While specific techniques aren't my primary focus in this course, certain practices help teams learn together effectively. Many teams use planning poker with story points on the Fibonacci scale, 0.25, 0.5, 1, 3, 5, 8, 13. But there's something important that I want you to understand. The value isn't in the numbers themselves, it's in the conversations they generate. When team members give different estimates, it creates natural knowledge sharing opportunities. Maybe someone has done similar work before and knows about hidden complexities. A junior team member may overestimate because they're unsure about the technology. These discussions help build shared understanding and improve future estimates. As these discussions happen sprint after sprint, something interesting emerges. The team develops what we call velocity, a measure of how much work they typically complete in a sprint. But velocity isn't just about measuring output. It's a powerful health metric that helps you understand your team's stability and capacity. Think of velocity as a heartbeat monitor for your team. Just as a steady heartbeat indicates good health, steady velocity suggests your team has developed consistent practices and shared understanding. And just as changes in a heartbeat can signal something worth investigating, changes in velocity often reveal important team dynamics. Never compare velocities between teams. That's like comparing heartbeats between different species. Every team estimates differently, so cross-team comparisons are meaningless. Instead, watch for patterns within your team. When velocity becomes stable, your team has developed reliable estimation and delivery practices. When it changes significantly, that often signals something worth investigating. Maybe the team composition changed or they're working in an unfamiliar area. With this foundation of good estimation practices and team health metrics, we can start thinking about forecasting. But here's where things get more complex. Even with stable estimates and good velocity metrics, real-world factors constantly influence delivery timelines. Adding new team members or losing experienced ones affects your delivery capacity. Dependencies on other teams introduce uncertainty that's hard to quantify. Effective forecasting requires considering practical factors that many leaders initially overlook: team member vacations and holidays, typical patterns of sick time, onboarding time for new team members, cross-team dependencies, and time needed for knowledge sharing and team communication. This is why empirical evidence, actual data about what your team has delivered in the past, becomes so crucial. It helps you account for these real-world factors that affect delivery. As your team builds these capabilities, one of your most powerful tools becomes a well-maintained, prioritized backlog. This isn't just a list of work. It's a communication tool that helps stakeholders understand where their requests stand and why. When I need to explain why a particular request is priority number 140 out of 500, I can show exactly how it relates to revenue, business strategy, and other key factors. This level of documentation helps with more than just communication. It supports better decision-making about prioritization. While many frameworks are available, like Moscow, must, should, could, won't, or RICE, reach, impact, confidence, effort, they're tools to support your thinking, not replace it. Your role as a leader is to understand the business complexity, gather context, and develop clear reasoning for prioritization decisions. All of these practices, consistent estimation, careful forecasting, and clear documentation, come together in how you communicate with stakeholders. When they ask, "When will this be done?" the pressure to provide a specific date can be intense, but it's better to be honest about uncertainty than to make promises you can't keep. Instead of committing to specific dates early, explain your process. You might say, "Today, I can't give you an accurate forecast, but here are the steps we're taking to understand the work better. In 2 sprints, once the team has had a chance to break down and estimate the work, I can give you a more reliable timeline." This transparency extends to documenting and communicating changes that affect delivery. When team composition changes or dependencies shift, explain how these factors affect your forecasts. Becoming skilled at estimation, forecasting, and prioritization isn't about mastering specific techniques. It's about creating an environment where your team can learn and improve together. Focus on building consistent practices, maintaining clear documentation, and being transparent about capabilities and limitations. In our next chapter, we'll explore how to measure success, building on these foundations to understand when our delivered work is achieving its intended outcomes. But for now, think about your team's current practices. How might you start building the environment and habits that lead to better estimation? What small steps could you take to improve transparency and stakeholder communication? Remember, like estimation itself, this is a journey of continuous improvement where patience and consistency lead to better outcomes over time.